I'm going to tell you a little bit about my journey in creating Flute Loops, which was my most recent show about a quantum physicist, a PhD candidate who is trapped in her PhD. Is there anyone here with a postgrad degree? Hands up. Yeah, okay, so maybe you'll relate to her hero's journey here. And it's centered around this theory that she had that she could freeze time using the frequency of sound waves. But early in 2018, I did not know that I was setting out to write a rock opera about quantum physics. I do not have a background in math or science or physics whatsoever. But I did know that I would be performing this show over 50 times in 9 cities across Canada. And I thought, well, what am I going to try to get out of this then? Just in case the tour is a financial disaster, I would like to make some progress on my musicality. And so I made the choice to really focus on working with my loop station and the multi-instrumentation that I had been playing with up until now. Oh, can we get a little feed on this? I'll just give you a demo of how this all comes together. I also had this really weird bubble of thought in my head that maybe I could play with, poke fun at the way that a lot of pop music samples from itself really incestuously by sampling from the classical genre. In terms of my character and my hero's journey that I wanted her to go on, I didn't know where to begin. I just knew that I wanted the content of my show to be relevant somehow to the style of music and the way I was making the music, which sort of brought me to the intersection of math and music. And I dove in naively to my research and actually found a lot of similarities between math and music. They're both these stylized languages of expression that we can utilize to navigate the abstract. They both have their own rules and protocols and weaknesses. And when I was exploring where they met, of course, I came to physics and was really fascinated by the science and the substance of sound. And music making is something that I sort of understood intuitively, but it was interesting to learn more of the technicalities about it and get this picture of how sound waves are perfectly transmitted vibrational energy with such stability and integrity that every different instrument and, in fact, every different note has its own natural resonance pattern that is like a sonic fingerprint. How fascinating, how distinct they all are. And this led my writer's brain to wonder, what could the impact of that be on, say, your subatomic structure? The subtle changes in pressure that sound exerts beyond what the human ear can hear. So then I got into quantum physics. I mean, it's so rich, quantum mechanics from a writer's perspective and philosophical questions. And I don't know, I know there was a Curiosity Collider event earlier this year that sort of delved into the quantum universe, but maybe I'll just give you a quick refresher course on quantum physics. This is an excerpt from the show. Particle physics explores the nitty-gritty of the itty-bitty in the very beginning of the cosmos and in the subatomic building blocks that make up every single one of us. Now, quanta are the littlest packages of matter. Quantum, that's the singular for one tiny dancer, a fundamental speck, the elementary particle. Think of it like a pixel in the material world. So every atom's got a nucleus where the protons and neutrons are tightly squished and made up of even smaller bits called quarks held together together by gluons, particles of force, but electrons. See, they're more like moving points in flight we cannot further subdivide, orbiting that nucleus like subatomic satellites, the smallest possible conceivable size. Electrons are the threads of space-time, so I will riddle you this. Does an electron even actually exist if we cannot measure it until something else disturbs it or it jumps to a higher or lower energetic orbit, in the process of which it absorbs or emits a photon? That's a particle of light that can be seen, and we call these jumps quantum leaps. That's how an electron becomes real enough to see. Prior to that, it's just a complex field, like a cloud of infinite possibilities that we can only describe using probability, which is kind of unnerving, but somehow deserving. See, Werner Heisenberg, he termed this the principle of uncertainty. It's nature's fundamental property, and this peculiar paradox that particles present is at a certain point, probability is as precise as we will ever get. Okay. What a fun truth to discover as a writer, this idea that things are at a certain level inherently unknowable, and this indeterminism really influenced the themes in Flute Loops, along with my understanding of the granular nature of matter and space itself, and how things only really exist through interacting at the quantum level, which is a beautiful truth to take to more universal themes as well, particularly to do with time. My character in the show is obsessed with time and trying to freeze it using that finely tuned fingerprint of sound waves. Her theory is that she could penetrate those vacant spaces in your subatomic field and isolate every elementary particle in a state of perfect, stable stasis, and by doing so, prevent interaction and freeze time, because time, as we know, is relative. It doesn't even exist on the quantum scale. It's just meaning that gets made in the way that things progress and interrelate. And as a writer, I find time surfaces time and time again in my work. It's a currency that I'm a little bit obsessed with as an artist, and was quite happy to be able to dive into the technicalities of time, but also the wider universal themes about, can we control it? Do we control it? And what is it really worth? So I'm going to do a song from the climax of the show, when my character is sort of at a loss as to how she might finalize her proof and finish her PhD, if it's even possible to mathematically freeze time in theory, and if it were possible, if she should. What are the repercussions? This hocus pocus sonic vibration, nor is it a healthy focus on narrow fixation. These insurmountable equations, pages and pages and pages and pages of rabbit hole calculations. Am I Alice in Wonderland? Did I dive into a problem bigger than I'll ever solve, in a world too small to fit in with time? Time, you may shadow me, take up my life. Time, how you trouble me, boggle my mind. Time, there's no point on your traveling line. Time, ticking bomb, can't I set you aside just one time? days and days and days and days, chasing those peer-reviewed accolades, stringing empty letters after my name. But you know what Saint Stephen Hawking would say: the greatest enemy of knowledge is not ignorance, it is the illusion of knowledge. Is that what I've been after all this time? Time may shadow me, take up my life. Time, how you trouble me, boggle my mind. Time, there's no point on your traveling line. Time, ticking bomb, can't I set you aside? Just one time. Principle of uncertainty. Well, what good is that wisdom if it brings no peace? What is it that I dare to achieve? And what if I succeed? I mean, maybe it could, maybe, but should time really freeze? What happens to our greatest advances? The truth of the dark matter is that most of our progress has a nasty pattern where things ripen until they're corrupted or commodified or destructive or weaponized, and we've only ever had at best 50-50 hindsight. It seems to me whatever we endeavor to finitely measure, oh, we put it under pressure, but not for the better. I mean, who's to say we really grasp the facts if we don't have any concrete philosophical plan to contain the ripple effects? It's like we've got these tools, but we don't know how to use them, and so we just abuse them. I mean, look at music. These days, it's just become an assault, sort of medium to advertise, or just white noise made by white boys. And math, what do we really do with math anymore? Just calculate the bottom line, the dollar amounts by which we feel we're falling behind. And physics is not much different, is it? No. Physics is just full of progress made that in retrospect we kind of wish we didn't. I mean, what about that radioactive ocean flowing out of Fukushima? Or the nuclear warheads preheating in North Korea? But who's going to be the one? Who's going to stand up and say, physics, this is where the buck stops. We have got enough to mop up. I mean, it can't be me. Why should I give up on my dreams? Is anyone else standing up in their own industry, in their own field, to say, this is it? I think we've reached it, the absolute, outermost, reasonable limits. No. So what? If just this once, I want to be the one that everyone says is unseasonably gifted one time. Just one time. Don't you make me draw my own line. Oh, time. Don't you make me swallow my pride. Oh, time. I want you back on my side. Oh, time. I want to be kind. No. Time, you just shadow me. Take up my life. Time, how you trouble me. Boggle my mind. And time, there's no point on your line. Time ticking bomb, can't I set you aside? Thanks a lot. My name is Devon More, and thanks so much for having me today.
Does anyone have any questions for Devon? I know we didn't tell you that you might take questions, but does anyone? Please? Are you doing a show anywhere else?
This show I called Flute Loops, so this is an excerpt from, I performed just over 50 times this summer across Canada at fringe festivals mainly. So just finished at the Vancouver Fringe, and I do host and kind of curate a fringy theater series in New West called Way Off Broadway Wednesday that it will likely surface at again at some point. And I perform semi-regularly anyway. But at this exact moment, Flute Loops is on a little bit of a break. We spent so much time together this summer. Want to talk about something else?
Does anyone else have any questions?
Why physics?
Why physics? I mean, it just started with math and music led me. It felt like a natural progression to explore when I wanted to link the content of the show to the music. And I do have a bit of a fascination with it because I think quantum physics in particular has become this sort of postmodern spirituality. It's our method of trying to explain how and why things are the way they are, and it's fascinating, I guess. I'm a nerd. Just like research.
Thank you so much. That was really fantastic.